Welcome to the Friends of Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I am Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst at friendsoffantasybenefits.com. Join me on another episode of the Dynasty podcast. He is Sam. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm here. I'm like it is like it's not even the home stretch. It is like straight up marathon sprint right now for me. I will feel better in a month. But I'm stoked for all the drafts. I'm in my first like startup dynasty draft in years. So that's really fun. I'm starting a first year player draft for my other dynasty league tomorrow, where I've got pick 2 in the first year player draft. So gotta kind of decide which top tier prospect I want to take, and he'll probably be an outfielder. So that's gonna be fun. So, and then this is kind of this last weekend. I think I was telling you via text, like this last weekend is like the last free weekend I have that isn't filled with like drafts. Going to Vegas, going to New York, things like that. So, how you doing?
Man, I'm just living the dream. So you're talking about being in drafts last week or this week. I wrapped up. I was in 6 drafts last week. Your TGFBI. I'm still finishing up the Kingdom League draft with the Kang Do at Baseball 365. And I had a smattering of first year player drafts in several dynasty leagues. And as 4 of them faded out, I've got one more that started up, so I'm still in one fantasy dynasty draft, and I've got a couple coming up. So I'm just living the dream, like it's real baseball. We're not going to talk a whole bunch about him today, but I've been watching a lot of highlights of Jared Kelenic hitting balls over the outfield, and somebody was talking about it on Twitter that he's hitting fastballs down the middle, he's hitting these cake pitches, and I'm like, yeah, it's about time. Like, he wasn't hitting anything before. This is markedly different than what he's been doing before when given the opportunity at this level. So I'd like to see some more of that going on. So.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, like obviously you don't want to like overreact to like a guy having a hot first week of spring,
Right,
but at the same time, like I'd rather see him do that than strike out 8 times this week. So
right.
I'm not I'm not gonna like write it off as nothing, especially because I'm a Jared Kelenic guy. So but at this, like it's not a negative, like him starting, like you're supposed to crush balls in the center of the plate. Like that's what we want him to do. Like if he wasn't doing that, then we'd be very, very upset.
Right. No, and that's the whole thing is that, when we've been watching him before, that's not something that's been occurring. He's been overthinking, swinging at bad pitches. Like he's waiting to get the right pitch. And when he gets his pitch, he's swinging the bat and making wonderful contact. He had a game a week ago where he had 3 balls that had 107, 107, and 110 mile an hour exit velocities. And if he consistently hits the ball hard, like you cannot ask for anything else. At that point, you let the chips fall where they will, because regular elite contact, that's all I want to see at the plate. A little bit of launch angle, that's always nice too. Yep. I don't want to hit it into the dirt every time, but so yeah, it's the Mariner hype train is going nuts. We got Bryce Wilson, we got Prelander Baroa that people have been talking about. So a lot of these, Jonathan Clase, who we'll be talking about a little bit later, has had an okay spring. So I'm real excited. There's lots to talk about.
Well, let's talk about some outfielders, because that is what our discussion is for today. What's your kind of general approach to outfielders in Dynasty?
Well, I think that outfield has some really interesting tiers to it, and some of them fall off quicker than others. The pool of elite outfielders is a lot smaller these days than it might have been 5-10 years ago. Feels like you really need to get your guys early. So in startup drafts, I'm always looking to take 1 or 2 cornerstone outfielders. I think that it's real important to have production from your outfield. It's not a place that you can ignore. Most leagues that I'm in are 15-team, 5 outfielders. And even if you're in a 12-team 5 outfielder, that's 60 deep, not even counting reserves. And so I want to get somebody, and I want to get some steals out of that position. If I get a Jordan Alvarez, who I'm really high on, I want to make sure that the other cornerstone piece I have is going to accumulate more than 20 bags. I like putting him together with a runner. So those are my thoughts about outfield. How do you approach it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for guys. I mean, especially guys who are close to the majors, who potentially are 5 category contributors, and then the guys who are not close to the majors. I'm looking for some sort of carrying tool in fantasy, and typically, I'm looking for a top tier hit tool,
Mhm.
because I think the top tier hit tool makes everything play a little bit better. But I'm also willing to take gambles on the guys who have maybe they just have one tool. Maybe it's just hit, or maybe it's just hit, maybe it's just power, maybe it's just speed. Because every once in a while those guys break out and you find the guy that, hey, he's not gonna hit for much power, he doesn't have a ton of hit tool, but he's gonna steal just a crap ton of bases. And or you find the anti Santanders who he doesn't necessarily have an amazing hit tool or any speed whatsoever, but 30 bombs and a 250 batting average. So,
Yeah.
I think that's typically my approach to dynasty outfielders.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's kind of start. We're gonna start a little out of left field here, and I want to talk to you about Bryce Harper, Jordan Alvarez, Eloy Jimenez, long term at outfield, because I think when we've got guys in the majors who are elite hitters like these guys are, and they're in the outfield right now, but they probably won't be their entire career. How do you look at them in Dynasty?
Well, I think all 3 of them have, while the song that they sing sounds similar, I think all 3 of them are trying to sing a different tune, so to speak. With Bryce Harper, I'm real concerned he's only gonna be, he's projected to play half the season, so we're hoping to see him come back at the end of June, beginning of July. But what the Phillies do with him to keep him healthy, are they going to limit his time in the field? Most leagues require 20 games in the outfield. And so I have real concern for him playing in the outfield to start for 2024. We already don't get him in 2023. He's utility only in most all leagues. There's some, I believe, 5 game or 10. How many games did he get in the outfield? You have those numbers up? You have
I can grab it real quick.
So I think there might be some small leagues that have the playing time isn't needed, but most all leagues that I'm in are 20 games playing time, and so he's utility only, and
Yeah,
that
he only played 8 games. So even in Yahoo, which is a 10-game minimum, he's not
right,
going to be eligible.
right, and that makes it problematic. He's still an elite hitter. He's great for utility, but we're talking about needing to have a complete team, and it's really difficult to plug your utility with just one guy. Now, Bryce Harper makes a good argument to being that guy, especially when he's healthy, and especially in on-base leagues. Obviously he's an on-base machine, but it just makes me really worried. And for most in Dynasty, if I'm trying to win now, I believe I'm going to try to maximize my value for Bryce Harper and trade him. If I'm looking to win next year, I think he's a sneaky buy low. I think that you can, if he's on a team that needs that production to win this year, I think that you can get him inexpensively. Eloy is a different story. It seems like he's always injured when he plays the outfield. And I was really excited last fall when we were in Arizona, because the reports were that he was told to leave his glove at home. He was just to bring his batting gloves. He was going to be only hitting and focusing at DH. And as the clock turned to 2023, we find out that no, he's probably going to be playing the outfield. And, I'm really concerned. It makes it a question, so to speak. He doesn't, you can't predict injuries. I don't want to hash that conversation out, but I think that it makes it really tricky. And so for Eloy, I think you just need to know the risk versus knowing that Bryce Harper is not going to be an outfielder. You just have to know that if you have Eloy, there's a chance that, he's going to miss a significant amount of playing time if they have him regularly in the outfield. I do think that he will probably get 20 games in the outfield with Chicago if he's able to stay healthy this season, no problem. So eligibility issues, while they were there with Bryce Harper, aren't going to be there with Eloy Jimenez. I think it's more about just keeping him in the outfield, and that's the problem that we've had with Jordan Alvarez. First, it was his knees, and there was some real question marks about that after his 2019 season where, he played half the year and had better numbers than some batters had playing the whole year. 2020 was a real question. And then he showed last year he can play, and he can play the outfield, and he's healthy. He had surgery on his knees, cleaned things out. I'm not as worried about Jordan Alvarez's knees, but now we've got a hand problem. Now there's another thing that's coming up where he's not even swinging the bat and nothing's really going on. And so I have some real concern about, when you have Jordan Alvarez, he's a cornerstone of your lineup. High batting average, high home runs, high counting stats, no steals, but an elite 4-tier player. And I think one of the highest fantasy floors next to like a Freddie Freeman, if not surpassing him after what we saw last year and ages and whatnot. But so, all three of them, you just really need to know what you're getting into. And there's some real questions that we're going to have. So Bryce Harper, I think if you're a win now, you try to maximize what you can get for him. If you're on a win next year team, you try to get the best deal you can. And I think with the other two players, it's really, you have to know, the concern that might end up being a utility player. That might be a player that misses significant playing time due to either chronic or repetitive injuries by being in the outfield. So they make me nervous, but I you started it off by saying these are elite bats. I mean, you really want to have them on your roster. They have significant value. I'm not trying to take away from them at all.
Yeah, I mean, they are elite bats. I mean, what Jordan did last year, in spite of the fact that he was dealing with the hand issue that is now posing another problem for him to even get on the field for 2023. Like, he was elite. He was one of the best, if not the best, overall hitter in all of baseball last year.
Right.
Eloy, once he came back from injury, was one of the best hitters in all of baseball last year. And Bryce Harper, Bryce Harper has proven over the course of his career that he is one of the best hitters in baseball. But I stay away from all of them in dynasty leagues. I actually traded Eloy in my other dynasty in my dynasty league that's been going on for quite a few years now. Last season, because I was just like, I don't want to deal with the injuries anymore. Jordan didn't even make it to me at pick 8 in this startup dynasty draft, but there's no way I would have taken him in the first or second round of this league. You may not have concerns about the arthritic knees. I do. As someone who has arthritic knees and an arthritic hip, like, those things do not get better over time. And he is a big boy. He's already having problems at this young of an age. He's gonna have much bigger problems down the line. And like, now you've got this hand issue. Like, he's just off my board until we see him on the field.
Right. And it's really tough because Jordan Alvarez, I think, is my favorite non-Mariner baseball player. Watching him hit the ball is probably my favorite thing to do in baseball. There's tons of fun things that go on that we get to watch and document and discuss, but Jordan hitting home. I mean, even when he knocked us out of the playoffs last year, I was just like, oh my God, he's so beautiful. And you have to avoid him. I think there's some real truth to that there's, unless you're able to buy at a price where somebody is, they're significantly concerned about that. That changes the dynamic. I'm not out on all three of those players if the price is correct, but yeah, I wouldn't pay market value for any of them right now.
I think that's fair. Let's talk about some players you're trying to target in trades and startups, because hey, I'm going to start up right now, so I might want to target some of these guys too.
Okay. Well, you mentioned one of them. So in a win now situation, I'm looking for some players that might be a little bit older and discounted. And Anthony Santander is one of those players who last year put it all together. And he did so in a stadium that became significantly worse offensively than it was before. Baltimore went from one of the best hitters parks to one of the worst. And so I'm real interested to see if he's able to continue that this year. He hit 30 home runs last year. He hit 250, like you said, and that's in any kind of roto league is incredibly valuable. On base and points, he might lose a little bit of a luster, but in a traditional 5-category roto, he's a great player. He's got a high walk rate. He dropped his K rate last year. And again, he played the most games last year and looked good doing it than he'd played his entire career. So I'm in on Anthony Santander as a acquisition piece. What do you think?
Yeah, I like Santander a lot. Drafted him, I think, in TGFBI. And yeah, I mean, he's a guy I was really big on coming in the last year. Really thought he could do what he did, and he's not as affected by the park as other guys, so I'm not super worried about that. I think as long as he stays healthy, he's had some injury issues over the course of his career, and so I think injury is the only thing that really would stand in his way from being able to continue to kind of repeat this 30 home run season with 250-ish batting average.
Right. He doesn't hit any kind of wall scrapers. He hits a country mile. And I think that, again, not to overemphasize the need for power, but power dries up quickly. And so having somebody who hits 30 home runs, or you feel super confident is going to hit 30 home runs, is a must-have. Another player that I really like in Win Now that's probably inexpensive to acquire is Jesse Winker of the Milwaukee Brewers. He came over and had a disastrous season with my beloved Seattle Mariners last year. But I think that there's more to what he has than what we got out of him. He's going into a much better park to hit at. He does great at the plate. He's got traditionally a significantly low strikeout rate. He walks a ton, and he hits for good power. He had really good numbers in Cincinnati. I think it was 2021 before the injury. He was playing at an all-star plus level. It's easy to look good in that park, but I think Jesse Winker is somebody who is going to have a sneaky good season and will work himself into regular playing time all year for Milwaukee for the next couple of years. I think it's a good fit for him and for that team. So I'm in on Jesse Winker. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get a guy coming off his worst season of his career and had off-season neck and knee surgery, you just gotta do it. No, Jesse Winker's not good at baseball. Like you're not the only person I've had this argument with. Like, he's just not very good. Like, he's probably a strong side platoon bat. He's atrocious defensively, which limits his ability to actually stay on the field because they don't want him on the field. Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee's going to need that DH spot for other guys as well. Like, no, Jesse Winker's not good. Like, I'm just not. Like, I've had this argument with Paul. I had this argument with Derek Van Riper because they're both Winker guys. Like, he's just not good at baseball.
So you argued with the smart people in the room. I love to hear that. That's
absolutely. He can take a walk, which is fantastic. Yes, he gets a bump in OBP,
he doesn't strike out a ton. He doesn't
steal bases. He doesn't hit for power. He said 24 home runs is his max, and it was in Cincinnati, which he's not going to be playing in.
Fair enough, but he's got above average power than the league. He's not a power hitter like we were talking about with Santander, but 20 to 25 home runs is not bad. And you're going to get him super cheap, and he's going to play every day because Milwaukee
He's not going to play every day. He's going to platoon.
He's not going to platoon. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely is going to platoon. Like, I mean, it's just like he doesn't hit, he doesn't hit left-handed pitching well. Like, it's just,
okay.
like, We'll see what happens at the end of the season. But yeah, Jesse Winker is not. Jesse Winker is going to be on more waiver wires than he's on teams by the end
If
of the
it
year.
was just Derek, because I know he's a Brewers fan and needs to have something to root for this year. But man, I'm in on him also. So
The dude is a career 205 hitter against left-handed pitchers. 205.
it's fine. It's fine.
I mean,
I hear what you're saying, and I raised you the Milwaukee Brewers. So
yeah, no, just no. I'm not playing it. All right, who are some guys that you might be targeting in rebuild mode?
okay, so one of them was one of the guys that we talked about last November, and that's another ex-Mariner, Jake Fraley, who's now playing over in Cincinnati. I think that he needed to get out of the Seattle organization. I don't think that he was going to, given the outfielders we had at the time, I don't think he was going to get a real fair shake. Cincinnati seems to be a great place to have that opportunity shake out. He's projected to get 110 games in this year, and I think that that's low. I think we could see him in 120 or 130, especially if he does what he does, which is he's super patient at the plate. He's got a great walk rate, but he also hits for a little bit of power. He's got great speed. He should have a decent average. I think he's a 250, 350, 450 hitter, but possibility to do much better than that playing at the Great Small Park of America. So, I'm real excited about Jake Fraley. And then another player that I'm looking for if I'm in a kind of retool thing is Juan Yepez of the St. Louis Cardinals. I'm just in love with him. I think that he hits the ball great. He doesn't strike out a lot. He doesn't walk a lot either. He's an aggressive player at the plate. But I think that there's a real chance that we're going to be looking at a 30 to 35 home run outfielder for the next 3 to 5 years after this year. I think it's going to take him a year to get regular playing time, but he was already starting when Pujols came back over last year and Pujols took his job. And instead of getting upset and being bitter, he just went underneath Pujols' wing and started soaking up everything he could. And my understanding is that they were even working out in the off season. And so, for me, that's a real strong signal that Yepez is somebody who really is working hard to make this happen. And I know everybody's working hard, the majors almost to a person. And this is always the time for the best shape of the year. Or look at this new pitch that I've got. There's always some kind of noise. I think that there's a lot of signal from Juan Yepez. So Jake Fraley and Juan Yepez are two targets that I have.
Yeah, I mean, I like both these calls. I think the problem with Yepez is he's so limited defensively that he and the Cardinals are just stacked. I mean, it's like, on top of like already what they had, now they're probably going to be adding Jordan Walker to that mix either on opening day or very soon after.
Right.
I just have a hard time finding a full-time role for him.
Well, I don't think that he's going to be a full-time player, but I think he's going to be a super utility because I think that he's going to get time at first base, outfield, utility. He might.
Yeah, you don't want your utility guy to be a first base outfield dude. Like you want him to be able to play like other like the middle infield or third. Like I think the best case scenario for Juan Yepez and for teammate Nolan Gorman is to be traded. Like package those two together, send them to Miami for like Trevor Rogers. Send them to San Francisco for whatever they want. Like
there you go, San Francisco. I'm down with San Francisco. Please don't send Juan Yepez to Miami. I don't want that at all. I think Juan Yepez is going to get 100+ games this year, and I
hope you're right.
I think he's going to keep and maintain outfield eligibility, and that's why I'm real excited for him. I think that there's, again, it's not this year. I agree with you. I think that especially given the breakout that Jordan Walker is showing the world who he is, that, it's not this year that he's going to, or it's not at the beginning of the season. It might be by, Memorial Day, the 4th of July. It might be one of those holidays where Juan Yepez is finally in the lineup regularly all the time. But I think starting in 2024, he's going to be a starter for them and is going to be a bat you can't keep out of that lineup. And they have tons of options there. So
like I said, I hope you're right. I've got Yepez and I've got Yepez, I think, in 2 of my 3 dynasty leagues. So and the third one I'm drafting right now. So I could end up with him in my third. So, what about a guy or prospect that you're targeting?
So a prospect that I'm targeting is an outfielder with the Minnesota Twins, Emmanuel Rodriguez. In 47 games last year, he hit 9 home runs and he had 11 stolen bases. But here was his slash line. He hit 272, which is all right. He had an on-base percentage of 493, and he had a slugging of 522 for an OPS, around 1050. He is wonderfully patient at the plate, but he's not. I forget the player that you were talking about before. That
Eduardo Julian,
yeah, the patient guy. I really like his hit tool. I think that he's got some things to show off. He was only in A last year, so this is the year that we really need to see what he can do in the higher levels of the minors. But I think starting 2024, we're going to be looking at him potentially being in the outfield of Minnesota, if not opening day, by the middle of the season. I just think he's got that it factor, and that's, when you read up and you start reading what the people around the Twins organization says, and coaches and the beat writers, they talk about him having that it factor, and so I'm real excited to see what that it factor is. So.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the strikeout rate is. I mean, he's had some pretty high strikeout rates. He's still super young. He did end last year with a knee injury, so you need to kind of see what he is when he comes back from that. But definitely an interesting guy, maybe to take a shot on. Who else?
I have a Mariner prospect I really like. His name's Gabriel Gonzalez. He's got just a phenomenal hit tool. Last year, he hit 321, 410, 468, 7 home runs, 9 stolen bases. He's also young. He's 19. He did that in low A. But he's arguably the number one prospect for all of the Seattle Mariners. And, I am a homer, but that farm system is a lot deeper and talented than I think a lot of people really are expecting them to be, given all the talent that they just graduated out into the majors in the last couple of years. He's going to be starting the year in Everett, low A or high A, I believe. And I expect him to make a run this year and end up in Arkansas or Tacoma. I really like the hit tool, and I think the power is there and will continue to develop. And we're looking at, potentially a 25-15 guy with a high average, which is, if he's able to translate that in the majors, that's a top 3 round talent, if not top 2.
Yeah, I like it. What about a deep prospect?
So, okay, I'm going with my favorite outfielder prospect, and that is Jonathan Clase, also of the Mariners. He's the fastest dude on the team. And you were talking about having an outfielder that's got that carrying tool that he's got, but he's not going to be another Malik Smith. You can just let that go. He actually has a pretty decent hit tool. Last year, he hit 267, 374 on base, 463 slugging. He hit 13 home runs, which was great. He had 55 stolen bases. He had 45 runs batted in and 91 runs. If that guy's hit tool continues to develop and maintains at the levels that he can turn stolen bases on their ear when he makes it up into the majors. I mean, you could be looking at a legitimate 60 to 70 stolen base player again. So I'm excited for him. I think he's just fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's obviously super, super young, 20 years old, good defender, which is good because I think there are some questions about that hit tool and what it's going to end up looking like
Sure.
at the major league level. We're talking about a 27% K rate, early on in his minor league career. Still super young, plenty of time to develop, but it can't teach speed. Right? I mean, that is a God-given gift and legitimately 80 grade speed. And like you said, one of the fastest guys in the minor league right now. So definitely someone in your deeper dynasty leagues to take a look at.
I'm telling you, by next year, he will be a household name. So this is the time to get him right now.
All right.
He's Favorite dude, though.
Let's play some red light, green light. Some players coming off of down situations or or a new situation. Let's start with Alex Kirilloff, a guy who has missed a ton of time due to injury, just can't seem to stay on the field. A former top 10 prospect in all of baseball. Problem is, again, season hasn't even started. He's already having an issue. He's not yet played in any games. The Twins are actually dealing with just a crap ton of injuries. Not surprising considering the way they're built, but where are you at on Alex Kirilloff?
Yeah, I think that's the real unfortunate thing is that he just can't stay on the field. And when he's on the field, it's not what we wanted to see, especially the last couple of years. And so I'm out on him. He's projected, I believe, this year to play 100 games at 13 home runs, and I'm taking the unders on both. Again, I don't like rooting against players, but as far as Alex goes, if I don't have him rostered anywhere, and if I did, I would be looking for that owner that's still excited about the prospect luster he had a couple years ago. So I'm not interested at all.
It's amazing to me that guys like Jared Kelenic get written off. I know Kelenic is now again a hot name, but 2 months ago, everybody was laughing at the idea of Jared Kelenic being a major league player, but people were still drafting Alex Kirilloff in redraft leagues like he's going to be something. I posted, and obviously I do my ranks for redraft, but I posted my ranks on Fangraphs, last month. And then when I did my outfielder ranks, I had him at outfielder 150 or something like that.
Right.
And people were screaming at me in the comments. And I'm like, I'm sorry, how can you project him for more than 300 plate appearances at the major league level? You can't do it. If you're doing it, you're being disingenuous at best. So, or at least wish casting. So yeah,
right.
No, I'm been out on Kirilloff for a long time.
And happy to be wrong, right?
Yeah.
You want to root for every player that's playing. So I would love to be wrong on it, but I don't think I'm going to be. So
what about Cody Bellinger?
Cody Bellinger, he's got nice projections. I think he's projected for 18 home runs, 13 stolen bases this year with the Chicago Cubs. He's bringing to the table a low walk rate and a high K rate. The last 2 years have just been terrible for Cody Bellinger. He was at such radiant heights. He was an MVP. He had everything going for him, and then he didn't. He literally, and it hasn't come back. There's nothing that shows any sign of life. And so, again, I don't roster him anywhere. And if I did, I would be looking for somebody that was the Cubs fan, somebody that believed that this was his year to show out. Even worse than Alex is that it's not even him being off the field from injury. He's just terrible when he's playing. And I don't even know if it's that he's so terrible or if it's just the marked difference of him when he was elite versus him now that makes it so unbearable to roster or to stomach. And so I don't mean to pile on poor Cody Bellinger, but help me see the good because I don't see any. He's probably
okay. I got you covered, right? Here you go.
I'm ready.
So Cody Bellinger is a former first round pick in redraft leagues, multiple years, right? First round pick.
Yes, sir.
In what was a quote unquote bad year, and it was a bad year, right? He hit 210, right? The on base percentage of 265. He still had 19 home runs and stole 14 bases.
What was his K percentage?
I don't care. K percentage is not a stat in fantasy.
We just talked about that before. Okay. Yeah, no.
In spite of the fact that he struck out at a 27% clip, he still hit 19 home runs. You know why? Because he plays every day because his defense is so damn good.
Okay.
How many guys, and I'm gonna talk about this from a redraft perspective for a second, but I think you can apply it to Dynasty. Absolutely. How many guys that you get outside the top 175 picks could return first round value pretty easily? Not many.
Ooh. So you say pretty easily, man.
Once you show a skill like he's shown, you own that skill. Am I projecting that he's going to do that? Absolutely not. But is it in him? Absolutely. If he hits 40 home runs and steals 20 bases with a 260 batting average, are you really going to be that surprised? He did it in 2019 and he's still young.
He did it with a rabbit ball on a, you know, I don't know.
You're not saying that his MVP year was rabbit ball induced. Like that's just not being. He's truly struggled since the shoulder injury.
I'm saying that 2019 was an outlier offensive season for a lot of players, and that happens to be.
He hit 39. He went 39-10 in 2017.
Okay.
I mean, it's not the only time he's done it.
What has he done the last 2 years?
I understand,
okay.
But even last year, like he's got guys going ahead of like I love Jared Kelenic, but Jared Kelenick's going to go ahead of him in drafts, and that's wrong.
Every day, twice on Tuesday. So it's probably is wrong in redraft, absolutely. But Cody Bellinger is striking out significantly more the last 2 years than he ever had before, and his walk rate dropped significantly.
But 27% isn't that bad in the majors anymore. There's plenty of guys who are fantasy goodness that strike out 27% of the time.
Absolutely, and he doesn't feel and seem like one of those. Your point about being an accumulator is true, and in the outfield there is a need for it, but I'm out on Cody Bellinger, especially for how people feel about him. I think 18-13 is his ceiling this year.
No, he just went 19-14 in a bad year where he struck out 27% of the time and hit 210. That's not his ceiling.
For a team that I consider to be better. He's
on a team. He's in a good park in Chicago. They were top 5 in stolen bases last year.
You think he's going to be 2020 this year?
I think there's a legitimate shot that he is. Yeah, sure. I'm not projecting him to be, but if he went 30-20, I'm not going to be surprised.
This to me feels like Gary Sanchez, and I know that they're two different players with two different skill sets, but Gary Sanchez was this player who was super elite at a position and then wasn't and never got it back. And yeah, Gary Sanchez showed that he could hit 30 home runs. I don't think it's ever going to happen again. I think we saw his ceiling. I think we've seen Bellinger's ceiling, and now we're settling into, who he is. And sure, at what his cost should be, I'm more understanding of the choice to put him on your roster, but I wouldn't want him as one of my starting 5. I'd want him to play his way into my starting 5 from the bench.
The difference between Gary Sanchez and Cody Bellinger, I mean, outside of the obvious position, is that Bellinger's going to play every day because the defense is so good. He's going to play, and if you'd given Gary Sanchez 600 plate appearances last year, he would have he had last year he had 471 plate appearances, hit 16 home runs. Gary Sanchez probably hits 25 home runs if you give him 600 plate appearances.
At what, like a 170 batting average?
Home runs are home runs for the catcher.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So we're gonna roster Mike Zunino. Anyway,
do.
I'm out. God bless. I'm out on Bellinger.
You're wrong.
Okay.
All right. What about Charlie Blackmon?
Charlie Blackmon, man. I took a stroll down memory lane as I was looking at this. And if you go up to Baseball Savant and start going through the years of Charlie Blackmon as a hitter, there is so much red. He was such a good hitter for so long in Colorado. But we haven't seen the colors being so pale and as much blue as 2015, which was his first season, I believe, with Colorado. I think we've seen the best of Charlie Blackmon. I think that, if you have a win now team and he is on your bench because you need batting average, you need some power, he's still gonna, to your point about accumulators at cost, he's still going to play probably for Colorado. They seem to have a desire to play players that are 30 and above and not have any of their prospects play ever. So, I could see Blackman being good because he's in Colorado and especially in a daily league, but I'm not, short of that, I'm not probably not drafting him in any fantasy drafts for Dynasty. I'm probably not targeting him for anything. He's somebody that I would look to pick up off the waiver wire potentially at this point. I think a lot of shine is lost from him, and I think that there's going to be, he's going to end up being on somebody's bench for a boring win now team. He still has some value, but I don't see him being in a starting lineup. I don't see him as a starting 60 outfielder anymore. So,
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. What about Lourdes Gurriel Jr.?
Lourdes Gurriel Jr. He of the low walk and strikeout rates, the guy that just wants to swing at so many different things. Where'd the home run go? I think that he's shown that he's still got decent, there's still decent underlying metrics for him. But I'm wondering, does he just hit everything into the ground? Does he have a problem with his launch angle? Is there something going on with that? Because he hasn't seemed to been able to tap into that power he teased at the very beginning when he got first brought up into the majors. And so, new opportunity in Arizona. I think there's some pressure off of him not playing in the AL East and with Toronto. I have some interest on as a bench role, but again, not much more than that. I feel better about him than I do Lourdes Gurriel, about Charlie Blackmon, but he's not as exciting for me. But I'm not. I think he makes it as a green light player because he is so inexpensive now that he's the top 300 player that might give you top 200 value.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alec Thomas is going to supplant him at some point. So,
so you're out on him?
Yeah, I don't think he's interesting enough. To me, he is low ceiling, low floor. I don't want a low ceiling, low floor guy. He could absolutely return nothing in value, and even if everything kind of goes right for him, his ceiling is boring. What do I care about him?
Well, I think if he can figure out some ground ball, fly ball issues, some of his launch angle, I think that there's some interesting numbers there. So on the back end of an outfield or on a bench spot, especially at his cost, I think that might be interesting, but I can't strongly disagree with you either. He is who he is.
What about Jorge Soler?
Oh man, I dream on that power, man. That guy can hit the ball a country mile. He walks a lot and he strikes out a lot and he hits a lot of home runs. So I think that we've seen the best of Jorge Soler, but I think we still can have a few good seasons of strong power. I think he's going to get playing time in Miami and he'll probably play for a couple more years. So, because of the need for home runs, because of the need for power, I like him, and I like him a little bit better in on-base leagues than I do in average leagues, but I like Jorge Soler. I'm sold on his home runs.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's gonna DH pretty much every day. I don't think he's gonna play the outfield very much at all in Miami, especially with the options that they have there. I mean, right now, Jesus Sanchez doesn't even have a full-time role because their outfield is so packed. So I don't think Soler is going to play anywhere other than DH, which should hopefully keep him healthy, which is the biggest issue. His power plays anywhere. He could hit, home runs on the moon. I'm not super worried about how big that spacious that park is. So I think a return to health this year I think he's a really nice bounce back candidate this year.
Yeah, and I think that they'll give him enough run in the outfield. They don't seem to have real consistent. He just needs 20 games, and I could see him playing once a week in the outfield just to give him.
I don't even know that they do that, honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
With Chisholm now in center, they have 3 other outfielders that can man the corners. So I doubt it happens.
Okay. Yeah, well, if he loses outfield eligibility, there's he's a red light player for sure.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about your dynasty and prospect ranks in the outfield. Obviously, I don't need to push back again on Jesse Winker being a top 30 outfielder in dynasty, which is insanity. And I also obviously don't need to yell at you for ranking Cody Bellinger your 75th outfielder in dynasty.
See, that's really high.
That's you ranked him behind Joey Gallo. That's just insulting.
Yeah, Joey Gallo has also got great defense, and they're going to figure out how to shift against him. But I don't really like either of them. I would take Gallo before I took Bellinger.
That's insanity. That's absolute insanity. I don't even know how to deal with that in this moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Joey Gallo can't make contact. Like
don't make me defend Joey Gallo, man. Don't make me defend.
There is no defense for Joey Gallo.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, there's just absolutely no defense.
No defense for Cody Bellinger, but you've provided one anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see. Riley Green at 24 is awfully high, and that's 24 in terms of your outfield ranks.
Yeah.
I don't think he has a carrying tool in fantasy, which is a problem.
So, yeah, I don't think that he does any one thing right, but I think that he still has an opportunity to be an overall contributor. And I think that there's, Detroit really did a lot of things wrong in the last couple of years. It seems like with their old front office. I'm excited about what the new front office can bring, and I'm excited for Riley Green's part in that organization. I probably have him up higher than I should. That might be a little bit of the, I still feel like Riley Green's a great prospect and is going to be a great major leaguer. And there's definitely more questions today than there was a year ago. So that might be a little high, but I still like Riley Green. I think he's overall going to be just a fine outfielder. He's going to be a defender that's going to play regularly. And I think that stick will catch up, albeit he's playing in Comerica, which is terrible. So,
yeah, and a part of this is for those of you playing redrafts, you've seen this a little bit. Like after you get past the top 10, 15 outfielders, everybody has question marks. It just becomes, it's not, it's still a somewhat deep position, but there aren't it isn't strong at the top like it used to be, or at least it's not thick at the top like it used to be. So
everybody's got their problems, right? Like you can't continually go to the well and find everything that you need. You at that point, outfield becomes Tetris pieces. You really are fitting pieces into what you need.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't have any major or are you out on George Valera? Because you have him pretty low.
He keeps getting injured.
Yeah.
I like George Valera. I'm waiting to see something from him.
Okay.
I like him a lot.
That's fair. The fact that you have Ramon Laureano ahead of Cody Bellinger is just blowing my mind. You have Alex Kirilloff ahead of Cody Bellinger.
Okay, I'm sorry. I have Alex Kirilloff way too high. I really am a Cody Bellinger not truther, and maybe I need to open my eyes. I will give him far more opportunity to win me over this year when he's with the Cubs. I will take what you've said to heart and watch with more open eyes. But I just don't. After the last 2 years, I really think that Cody Bellinger's on his way out. I think that there's something going on between his ears that he hasn't been able to figure out and might not.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Sam, remind everybody where you can reach on social media and then plug all your work.
All right. Well, I can be reached on Twitter at SamFBB1. I do some writing at the Dynasty Guru. I do some writing and rankings with you at Friends with Fantasy Benefits. I just sent out the dog package to the winner of the Potapalooza.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't wait for him to open that up. That's exciting. That's all I'm doing. I'm just living, like I say it every week, man. I'm just living my best life. So that's where you can find me, livingmybestlife.com.
There you go. Find me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Email me the show, friendsoffantasybenefits@gmail.com. I'm writing daily at Fangraphs, writing pretty much daily at Fantasy Pros. I am on the Sleeper in the Bus podcast, TGFBI podcast, and the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. That will do it for Sam and me. But for Sam and me, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
Peace and love.